Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave, and today going to be taking a look at my 23-24 Premier League predictions. As always, going to be starting from the bottom to the top. But before we dive in, I want your predictions. Who's going to get relegated? Who will be in the top four? Who's going to win the Golden Boot? Which manager's going to get sacked first? And who is going to lift the Premier League title? But anyway, let's get this party started. In 19th and 20th, I'm going to go for Sheffield United and Luton Town. I don't think there's enough Premier League quality in their sides. Let's start with Sheffield United. Last time they were promoted to the Premier League, Chris Wilder's tactics surprised the league. His use of overlapping centre-backs was revolutionary and it caused many problems for Premier League teams. I don't think the Blades have a similar tactical surprise this season. They aren't a bad side, playing a number of systems under Paul Heckingbottom, usually with a back three base, but the issue I have is in their summer transfer dealings. Selling Ilman Ndiaye to Marseille and not engineering a second loan spell with James McAtee from Manchester City. Ndiaye finished the season as the Blades' top scorer and top assister in the Championship, being directly involved in 24 goals. He was capable of moments of brilliance in the final third, especially on the carry. Only João Pedro completed more dribbles than Ndiaye in the Championship last season, and they haven't replaced that creativity in the window. But also, James McAtee, the attacking midfielder, found his feet at the end of the season, scoring 4 goals and registering assists in his last 9 games. The Manchester City youngster has massive potential and should be playing Premier League football at Bramall Lane this year. For their poor transfer window, Sheffield United will finish rock bottom in the Premier League. Next up, one of the founding members of the Football League who will be playing in the Premier League for the very first time. Luton Town. The Hatters had a wild season last year, losing Nathan Jones to Southampton in November, then replacing him with Rob Edwards, who was sacked by fierce rivals Watford earlier in the season. Luton went on a crazy playoff run, losing only 3 games in the Championship in 2023 on the way to beating Sunderland, then Coventry in the playoff final. Stylistically, Luton are an aggressive, difficult team to play against. They load the box and the ball is wide. Their 3-5-2 gives them a solid base, good midfield coverage and 2 options to hit in the channels. Their recruitment has been good. I like the addition of specialist wingbacks Ryan Giles and Issa Kabor. Ryan Giles excelled for Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough as an attacking left-back. He finished the season with 11 assists. No player managed more in the Championship. Issa Kabor ranked in the top 1% of fullbacks in Europe for progressive passes received and tackles in the final third, showing he'll be a good outlet in attack and defence in the opposition's half. Luton Town will go long and try and win the ball back in the opponent's half. They've got 2 great targets in Carlton Morris and Elijah Adebayo. Both excel at running the channels, holding the ball up and defending with aggression. They're going to be horrible to play against this season. Carlton Morris is the side's main goal scorer. He finished with 20 goals in the Championship last season, with a really nice split of 8 goals with his right, 6 with his head and 6 with his left, showing his ability to put the ball into the back of the net. He also won 4.77 aerial duels per 90, a number only bettered in the Premier League last season by Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Kiefer Moore amongst strikers. Unfortunately though, Luton will finish 19th. The last spot for relegation is a real tough one. I feel like any of Wolves, Everton, Forest, West Ham, Palace or Fulham could go down. Each team has success or failure based on the following. For Wolves, Lopetegui staying at the football club. The Spanish tactician showed at the back end of last season that his tactical setup alone can keep Wolves in the league. It definitely wasn't the goals. Wolves scored 31 goals in the Premier League last season, fewer than any other side. As much as Lopetegui holds the key to Wolves this season, Mateus Cunha or Kolasinac need to step up and score some goals. For Everton, it's a similar problem. Everton scored only 34 goals in 38 games last season. They look like a different side with Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front. But in the last 2 seasons, he's only managed 17 appearances in each year. The last time he played over 30 Premier League games, he scored 16 goals. But not only that, he is perfectly suited to Sean Dyche's direct style. He won more aerial duels than any other forward in the league last season. You combine that out ball with Danjuma's ability to drift into wide areas from 9, and you can have a devastating front 2. The issue though is how many times will Dyche be able to field the duo together? Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, found down their goal scorer at the end of the season with Owoni. The Nigerian international scored 6 goals in his last 4 games to confirm for his safety in the Premier League. He does start the season injured, but when he returns, the goals will come. The Midlands club issue came with their away form. They picked up only 8 points in 19 games, the worst record away from home in the league. Their home form though was good, 30 points in 19, ranking them 10th in the Premier League. Their safety will be decided on the performances away from the City ground. West Ham need to spend the Rice cash. At the time of recording, they haven't bought a single player. This is a dereliction of duty at board level, considering West Ham lifted their first major trophy in 40 years after beating Fiorentina in the Conference League. I feel for West Ham fans. But if they don't replace Rice, they'll face the drop. Crystal Palace safety depends on Eze and Elise providing a spark in the final third. With Zaha leaving to join Galatasaray, Palace have lost their talisman. Zaha scored 68 goals in the Premier League for Palace, 33 more than any other player in their history. Eze and Elise need to step up this season or Palace will be down. Elise ended the season with 11 assists, only Salah and De Bruyne had more, whereas Eze ended with 10 goals, more than the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Darwin Núñez and Ilkay Gundogan managed last season. Fulham is a strange one. They finished last season in 10th. They looked great at times last season, but finished the season with 8 defeats in the last 13 games. Their pre-season has also been destabilised by Saudi interest in Marco Silva and Alexander Mitrovic. The reports are that the Serbian bagsman wants out. This is a massive issue for Fulham and Silva. Mitrovic is one of the best target men in the league. He elevates Fulham from relegation battlers to comfortable mid-tablers. He scored 14 goals in the Premier League last season despite missing 8 games through suspension, nearly 3 times the amount of any other Fulham player. I just don't think Raul Jimenez or Carlos Vinicius can step up. Fulham are also missing Joao Paulinho at the start of the season, one of the best ball-winning midfielders in the league. Paulinho won the ball back through tackles and interceptions more than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues. 193 tackles plus interceptions is very impressive numbers. So, decision time. West Ham will start poorly, spend some cash, and end up winning the Europa League and staying in the Prem. Roy Hodgson will Roy Hodgson, and Palace will stay up. As much as I worry about Lopetegui, I think he'll stay. When Fulham hold on to Mitrovic, they'll be fine, which leaves Forest and Everton. Steve Cooper's men are going to have a rough start to the season. Injuries to key players and a tough start to the season could see them flirting with the relegation zone. But the quality of Brennan Johnson and Morgan Gibbs-White should pull them out of trouble. The pair were directly involved in 11 and 13 Premier League goals respectively and should only get better. So Everton, they've been flirting with relegation for a few seasons now, and I can't see Calvert-Lewin staying fit. They needed a massive summer rebuild this season, and so far have only signed Ashley Young and Danjuma. They've basically done nothing. 18th position for Everton. So let's roll through the rest. We've got Forest in 17th, Palace in 16th, West Ham in 15th, Wolves in 14th and Fulham in 13th. Now time for the sack race. We nailed Frank Lampard, Thomas Tuchel and Scott Parker last season. So if you're a Premier League manager watching this, you might want to skip this section. There are 2 obvious candidates for the sack, Julian Lopetegui and David Moyes. Both have had rough transfer windows with their clubs failing to back them, but I'd also throw in Paul Heckingbottom into the mix. I feel like if Sheffield United don't pick up points, the owners won't wait around. But unfortunately, I'm going to go with David Moyes. I do not agree with this at all, but the tensions at West Ham are already too high, and losing a player of the calibre of Declan Rice and not replacing him is absolute madness. That is not Moyes' job, but I feel he'll take the brunt. Right, enough about people getting sacked. On to the teams to watch this season, Bournemouth and Burnley. Let's start with Bournemouth. Why am I excited about Bournemouth? Not only have they assembled a really fun group of players, Dango Otaria, Hamad Traore and Jaden Anthony, but they've got a coach that played in Marcelo Bielsa's Athletic Bilbao side that got to the Europa League final. His name, Adoni Iraola. His style at Rayo Vallecano was described as intense pressure, high block, vertical, daring, open and quick. Wide overloads, a lot of crosses into the box, loads of players attacking the box equals a lot of shots on goal. And the stats back this up. In La Liga last season, only Barcelona and Bilbao spent more time in the opponent's half, only Bilbao put more crosses into the box, and only 4 teams had more shots than Rayo Vallecano. But arguably their biggest strength was their hybrid pressing in a 4-4-2. Aggressive, horrible to play against, but also created chances. Only Bayern Munich forced more high turnovers that led to shots in Europe's top 5 leagues than Rayo. Altara, Anthony, Brooks and Hamad will thrive in the wide areas. Solanke will be great at running the channels, with Philip Billing crashing into the box to score. Bournemouth will be fun to watch next season. Iraiola's going to bring a really aggressive, pressing, almost German style to the league, but Bournemouth will finish 12th. From chaos to structure, Vincent Kompany's Burnley are basically Manchester City 2.0. Last season they were Centurions. They finished on 101 points, the 5th most in the competition's history. They scored 87 league goals. Only Manchester City and Arsenal scored more in England's top 2 tiers. They also conceded the fewest goals in the Championship and averaged 65% possession. Stylistically, they are very similar to Pep City. They dominate possession, invert fullbacks, rotate positions, underlap, overlap, position their nominal wingers high and wide, and build up in a variety of ways. Similar to Manchester City before Haaland, their goal involvements are spread amongst the team, with no fewer than 8 players with 10 or more goal involvements in the league last season. Burnley are going to go and surprise a lot of teams with their style this season, and that is why they're going to finish 11th. Right, on to the top 10. In 10th, Brentford. They've made unspectacular but good signings in the summer. Centre-back Nathan Collins from Wolverhampton Wanderers and goalkeeper Mark Flecken from Freiburg. Flecken kept 13 clean sheets in the Bundesliga last season, more than any other goalkeeper. Both will keep Brentford moving in the right direction. Brentford conceded just 46 goals in the Premier League last season, which was only bettered by teams that finished in the Champions League places. The big miss though for Brentford is going to be Ivan Toney. He scored or assisted 41% of Brentford's goals in the Premier League last year. Toney is banned till January, so someone's got to step up. That could be Brian Mbeumo. The attacker finished with 17 goals and assists last season, his best ever Premier League return. But without Toney's presence up front, I can't see Brentford breaking into the European places. In 9th, we're going to go for De Zerbi's Brighton. This is a real tough one. The best footballing side in the Premier League last season. Their use of boxes and 6 central players to create faux counter-attacks was brilliant. But I think the Europa League will hurt their league form. De Zerbi didn't rotate well at the end of last season when the fixtures piled up during their FA Cup run. The Italian tactician is going to have to be far better at rotating his side. Saying that, Brighton once again have done well in the transfer window, signing wonder kid goalkeeper Bart van Bruggen from Anderlecht, Igor from Fiorentina, João Pedro from Watford, James Milner and Dahoud on free transfers. They also only lost Alexis McAllister to Liverpool, so they've kept Mitoma and Caicedo, adding in a returning Simon Adingara from Union who scored 11 goals and registered 9 assists in the Belgian Pro League. Brighton have got some good depth. They just need to use it this season. In 8th, Spurs. Ange Postecoglou will bring a real offensive element to Spurs. They'll attack in a 2-3-5 shape, with fullbacks Porro and Udogie inverting to create a 3-man midfield. They will score a lot of goals independent of whether Harry Kane stays at the football club. Postecoglou loves his wingers to hold the touchline and dribble at their opponents. This is going to be great news for Son and Kulusevski. Spurs also added James Maddison to their squad in the summer. Despite missing parts of the season, Maddison was directly involved in 19 Premier League goals. He'll be a good sign if he can stay fit. The issue with Postecoglou's tactic is they're very vulnerable in the channels. One of the reasons that they've signed centre-back Mickey van der Ven is his pace and ability to defend those areas. But if you want to be entertained this season, there'll be goals in Spurs matches, so make sure you watch them. In 7th, Eddie Howe's Newcastle. The Magpies have signed quality in the window. Sandro Tonelli from AC Milan and Harvey Barnes from Leicester City. Tonelli is a tactically gifted, hard-working central midfielder who's got good delivery from set pieces, whereas Barnes will add more goals and hard work to the flanks. Surprisingly, Barnes scored 2 more goals than Almiron in the Premier League last season, with finishing with 13 goals to his name. Both players will instantly slot into Howe's high-pressing 4-3-3. The issue, though, I've got with Newcastle's transfer window is they needed more. Their style is very physically demanding, and playing Champions League, then Premier League will be a first for most of their squad. Newcastle's first 11 will be very competitive in the Champions League. League. I half expect them to go quite far in the competition. However, their league form will suffer, thus the 7th place finish. Now to 6th, Aston Villa. A little surprise for today's video, but I think they've had a brilliant window. They brought in legendary director of football Monchi from Sevilla, then Pau Torres, Yuri Tielemans and Moussa Diaby followed. These are players that traditional elite clubs have been sniffing around for a few seasons. On top of that, Villa now look like an Emery side. A compact 4-4-2 off the ball. With the ball, the 4-4-2 transforms. A wide player tucks into number 10, opening up the flank for the wing-back to attack. Whereas on the other flank, the wide player operates as a nominal winger, creating a 3-2-3-2 attacking shape. Emery now has the squad to have this variation on both flanks. In terms of signings, Pau Torres slips in as a left-sided centre-back or left-back. Tielemans comes in at central midfield, but the most exciting tactical innovation will be Moussa Diaby playing as a striker. Emery did this with Danjuma at Villarreal to great effect, moving a winger into number 9. Diaby has got the skills to play this role, having scored 22 goals and registered 20 assists in his last 2 Bundesliga seasons. Since taking charge, Emery has won 15 out of his 26 Premier League games, as well as turning Ollie Watkins into a monster. In 2023, only Kane and Haaland scored more goals than Watkins in the Premier League, so expect another great season for Aston Villa. To 5th, the Champions League spot will just be a little bit too far for Pochettino's Chelsea in a very transitional season. Chelsea moved on Champions League winners Kovacic, Kante, Mount and Havertz to bring in Nkunku, Disasi, Jackson, Sanchez and Angelino. That is a lot of moving parts. Pochettino has largely set Chelsea up in a 4-2-3-1 with the use of his fullbacks high up the pitch. The fitness of Reece James and Ben Chilwell will dictate how Chelsea's season evolves. With the pair, Chelsea could look unstoppable, but there's a real drop-off in quality in the backups. Malgusto has big potential. He reminds me of a young Carl Walker, someone that Poch worked with at Spurs, but he needs to work on his offensive game in comparison to Reece James. Whereas Cucurella looks a quarter of the player that Chelsea spent 55 million on. The drop-off at fullback is big. Although the quality in midfield is definitely there, Enzo Fernandez will continue to thrive in the Premier League. Per 90, Enzo ranks in the top 1% of players in Europe for passes completed into the final third. Poch just needs to find him a partner, and Andre Santos could be that guy. This is very much a development season for Chelsea. Expect Chelsea to finish the season strongly. Now let's talk about the Golden Boot. Although this season, I don't think there's much of a discussion. We've got a robot playing in the league who scored more goals than Wolves and Everton managed in the entire season and the same amount as Southampton. Haaland has got the Golden Boot wrapped up. But why don't we do a quick fire round, get into the comments below. First up, your player of the season. I'm going with Erling Haaland. Young player of the season, Bukayo Saka. Best goalkeeper, Andre Onana. Best defender, John Stones. Best midfielder, Declan Rice. Best attacker, Erling Haaland. Signing of the season, again I'm going to go with Andre Onana. Breakout star, Simon Adingara. And of course, overachievers Burnley, underachievers West Ham. Get your predictions down below. Right, it is now Champions League time. Let's start with Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp's side needed a rebuild this summer, with a number of his key players coming to the end of their peaks, thus not being able to be good enough to compete for Premier League titles. Firmino and James Milner left on free transfers, whereas Fabinho and Henderson left for Saudi. Klopp evolved his tactical setup at the back end of last season, using Trent Alexander-Arnold as an inverted fullback, joining Fabinho into defensive midfield. Since moving to that role, Trent led the league in assists, chances created, passes in the opponent's half, penalty area entries, possessions won and touches. This inversion also pushed Liverpool's central midfielders higher up as free eights, a role that suited the more technical Curtis Jones, but didn't really suit the more energetic Henderson. Thus, Liverpool this summer have bought 2 technicians, Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister. Both are better suited to this new Liverpool. Szoboszlai finished the season with more shot-creating actions in the Bundesliga than any other player, whereas Alexis McAllister finished with 10 Premier League goals. My issue with this new 3-2-5 Liverpool is they haven't yet bought a specialist defensive midfielder, which will mean their weaker underbelly will be open up to the counter-attack. For this reason, Liverpool, for me, are behind Manchester United with Casemiro, Arsenal with Rice and Manchester City with Rodri. So 4th for Jurgen Klopp's men this season. Each of the remaining 3 teams could go on to win the Premier League. If you'd asked me what United need to do over the summer, I would have said buy a goalkeeper, central midfielder and striker, and they've done that. Onana is a brilliant footballer who massively will help United build attacks. Last season, Onana averaged 3.58 pass progressions per game, which would rank him second amongst Premier League goalkeepers. Meanwhile, his 0.6 middle touches per 90 is actually 10 times as many as David De Gea. Mason Mount comes in with Premier League pedigree. Since debuting for Chelsea, he's been directly involved in more Premier League goals than any other Chelsea player. He'll add a dynamic element to United's midfield, but also quality from set pieces. His 13 goal-creating actions from set pieces across the 1920, 2021 and 21-22 season was the most in the league. And finally, Rasmus Højlund is the perfect striker for Ten Hag to mould into a superstar. He's got more league goals plus assists at 20 than Luis Suarez, Robin van Persie, Karim Benzema and Harry Kane. Manchester United have solved all of their major problems this summer, which brings them closer to Arsenal and Man City. Arsenal had a brilliant season last year, coming just short of Manchester City in the title race due to injuries. Arsenal have come so far under Mikel Arteta. Their 3-2-5 possession structure has become the meta, and it's brilliant. Some of the football that Arsenal have played over the sort of last 12 months has been absolutely breathtaking. They've got a great team, and once again they strengthened in the window. Declan Rice will add more quality into defensive midfield. Rice ranked in the top 10 of Premier League players last season for progressive passes, tackles plus interceptions, passes in the final third and switches of play. Havertz will add goals into the team either from central midfield, wide left, wide right or as a striker or as a number 10. Timber's versatility and quality on the ball will be a godsend to Arteta, allowing him to proper cover for injuries in defence. We've also got to remember that Arsenal's best players in attack, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, are all a year older, so expect them to be even better. Saka scored or assisted 25 Premier League goals last season. Odegaard broke the record for most non-penalty goals from central midfield in a single season, and Martinelli was the top scorer under 21-year-old in the league. And finally, Manchester City. They didn't win much, did they? The robot broke every Premier League record, 36 goals and 8 assists in just 35 games for Erling Haaland. We went for a pretty more boring conservative back four with 4 centre-backs to allow John Stones to wander into midfield as a libero. Look, they were pretty decent. They have lost captain Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, which is a lot of experience, but signing Kovacic and one of the best young defenders on the planet in Josko Gvardiol isn't the worst window. Right, who is going to win the Premier League? As already mentioned, Man United, Man City and Arsenal could all win it. It's going to go down to who's going to keep their players fit at the crucial end of the season. I'm going to go with Arsenal in third, Manchester United in second and Man City in first. But anyway guys, what do you think? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Make sure you smash that like button. I've been Statman Dave. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you later.